I want to tell you about a new podcast called Amuse News. Publishing multiple days a week, Amuse News is your source for food news, interviews from around the food world, and more. On the show, we'll be engaging with food storytellers, from chefs to advocates to people working in the field, and many more. Find Amuse News wherever you get your podcasts. Amuse News is a destination for everyone who's looking for a new, insightful look into the world of food.
This program is brought to you by Joule, Sous Vide by Chef Steps. Joule takes the guesswork out of cooking. Learn more at chefsteps.com/JOULE.
I'm HRN's Communications Director Kat Johnson with a preview of this week's episode of Meat and Three, our weekly food news roundup. Fall is finally here, so it's time to get funky and devote an episode to some of our favorite spunky microbes.
Fungi just provide this beautiful, whimsical lens on how the world works. They have so many roles. They're this strange and magical-seeming group of organisms, but they've got it all figured out.
Should you eat the cheese rind? Can you eat the rind? These are like the biggest questions.
We'll answer all of your questions about mysterious mushrooms and crazy curds. Plus, we'll give you a sneak listen to the newest season of Modernist Breadcrumbs. So tune in to this week's Meat and Three on Heritage Radio Network, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to The Line here on Heritage Radio. I'm your host, Eli Sussman. We're coming to you live from the Heritage Radio Network studio located in the backyard of Roberta's, and today my guest is Brandon Hoy, one of the founders and creators of Roberta's Pizza, the sprawling Bushwick warehouse pizza party that has spawned a million copycats and a million jealous chefs and restaurateurs, where food lovers, young cooks, and restaurateurs used to look to Wolfgang Puck, Tom Colicchio, Thomas Keller, Alice Waters for innovation. They now look to Brooklyn and places like Roberta's to show us what a restaurant and what a food business and also what a food brand can potentially be. So Roberta's celebrating its 10-year anniversary in 2018 is sort of a big deal, especially for a place that when it opened was so in the middle of nowhere that people didn't even know where Bushwick was on the map. Over the years, Roberta's, all while garnering lots of critical acclaim, has had its share of controversies, its finances, and fundraising outreach and founders, and we'll talk a little bit about that today, coupled with a wild reputation. If you ever made it to Roberta's block party, you know what I'm talking about. So from starting a frozen pizza business, expanding to multiple New York City-based locations, and opening up now an LA location, we've got a lot to cover with the COO of Roberta's Pizza. Brandon, thanks for being on the show.
So I want to say that that's the best opening music that I've heard so far. I've been on a lot of shows here, and that was it felt really good. It's like a chill house. I like it.
It was the first one that they asked if they could use as the music bed, and I said,
is it legal, or is somebody going to sue you for using
I hope I'm not about to get sued. We've used it 69 times now. I'm going to start off on the show, as I always do, in the beginning. You're a California guy.
I am.
Napa Valley.
That's right. Just a dude from Napa.
How did you eat growing up? Do you have like a hippie family, a crunchy Napa family? Were you a all-American microwave family? Tell everyone how Brandon Hoy grew up.
Not crunchy, but definitely not crunchy. But I ate good. My father worked for the Napa State Hospital, which is a big hospital in Napa. He did rehabilitation, counseling, rehabilitation, and he used farming as the technique for rehabilitation. So he had a farm called Camp Coombs. He took patients there and he taught them how to farm. He had rabbits and chickens and all this stuff, and ate what they made and grew and fished. So I grew up kind of eating very well. My father was my mom was also a great cook, probably more in the traditional sense where she learned how to cook from a lady down the street, a Mexican lady down the street. So Mexican food was really like her introduction to cooking. But my father was more just like a from the earth kind of dude. So really like this whole like farm to table thing was I don't think I even thought of it as a thing. It was just that was kind of how I grew up.
Did you always used to run around the farm when you were a kid, or was that a separate part of your? Okay.
Fishing. I always went fishing out there, and there was, when I got a little bit older, I was really into mountain biking, and it's butts up to the Skyline National Park. And it's beautiful, beautiful, like biking country. So I would always go out there. I would mountain bike around, and I would hang out at the camp. And my dad would do like sleepovers with the patients, and I would go out there, I would camp with them. We would fish and cook and all that fun stuff.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that you were a wild kid growing up. Yes or no?
Yes.
And so
I don't think my parents tried to take me out to dinner a few times when I was a kid, and then I still remember the story about that at like some Chinese food place where they had to like barricade me under a table with chairs because I was just like the Tasmanian devil. I was so beyond wild. I mean, you know me. I'm like, I have
have energy.
More energy than a human being should possibly have.
So
until I hit the couch.
When you're growing up in Napa, is there a Pizza Hut nearby, a Domino's? Like what? I mean, you're in the pizza business now, so it's just worth asking, like, do you remember what you used to eat pizza-wise growing up? And was it crap pizza, or was there good pizza in Napa?
So I do recall Pizza Hut, and we had like Straw Hat, right? So we had those too. I don't recall those like those were more like what you did after soccer or something. It wasn't really the places we had like Mary's. We had small pizza places, Mary's Pizza Shack, and man, I can't remember the other one, in the Riverside Shopping Center.
But there were places where, some old guy or something, the family spot, and he was wearing a dirty apron. He was tossing pies.
Mom and pop, like pizza parlors. Not like fancy, pizza. It was good pizza, well crafted, but it was more just like mom and pop style.
Was Napa any part of it, either where you lived or some other part? Was it fancy then when you were growing up there, or is that a later development?
Yeah, it was later. So I left. I moved away from Napa in 1996. That's over 22 years ago. And still, even at that point, it still hadn't really even made the full transition. But when I was a kid, it was still very rural. I think at that point there was probably only, maybe 40 wineries. I think there's in the 200s now. So it hadn't really, even at that point, there was no such thing as Napa style. It didn't know what it was yet. It was still pushing into the thoughts of people as like, what could this possibly be? So it didn't really even have like its own personality. It was really still trying to find itself, I think, when I was a kid. But it was very rural. A lot of like hanging out in the like Safeway parking lot, a lot of chewing tobacco, and a lot of shooting BB guns and fishing, and it's just the very rural, like kind of suburban childhood.
Before you did cut out and you left pretty early from that area, you did a little bit of work in food. You worked at a butcher shop for a little while, this place called Ernie's Meats.
That's right.
Is that your first food related job? Were you like in high school, middle school?
I was in high school.
And what was that gig like?
I don't think it was. To be honest with you, it wasn't my first food related job. To be real honest, my first job, I was like 12, and I worked at Honey Treat Yogurt. I worked at the yogurt shop next to Mervin's. My sister was the manager there, so she was probably just in the shit and needed somebody to cover a few days during Christmas when nobody wanted to go to work. But that was my first job. I back waited. I was pretty much like a busser in a few places, like taco places, before Ernie's. But Ernie's was my like high school job, and I was a butcher's assistant. My best friend Matt worked there, and my friend Johnny worked there. We all kind of worked together. There was like 3 younger, like high school kids, and then there was the older guys, the butchers, and we pretty much just assisted the butchers. We helped them. I mean, we still got to break stuff down. I mean, pretty much the shit work. Break down the chickens.
And then you had to go up front and sell meat, right?
And then
customers?
we sold meat, yeah.
Okay, so...
And then also at lunchtime, it was across the street from St. Helena High School, so We also made all the sandwiches, which was like pretty much from 11:30 to like 2. That's all you did. You just made sandwiches, and then at like 5, then you were mostly just like selling meat.
So kind of an awesome classic butcher shop, like slicing deli meats for sandwiches,
Totally.
But also full case and everything like that.
Full case. They also did like, they had like rotisserie chicken, and they had they had like a tumbler, so they had like marinated ribeyes. So we did like all that kind of stuff too.
And then, you kind of got out of Napa pretty early. You were doing a lot of music stuff when you were a kid. That was a big part of your life. What made you decide that you wanted to get out of there? And what were you searching for, and where did you go?
I have no clue what I was searching for. I don't think I knew what I was searching for until I was in my 30s. I felt, I have a lot of energy, and Napa was just felt very small for me. I needed to see things. So, I moved around California first. I moved to Sacramento, and then I lived in Santa Rosa. And then a buddy that I worked with at Ernie's was living in Hawaii, and he had a good job. He worked for Roy's Kahana. And so he really wanted me to come out, which was probably good timing. I was like getting in trouble a lot. There was nothing good happening in my life. So I moved to Hawaii. I did the same thing. I actually was a back waiter at Outback Steakhouse. While I waited, I was on the list at Roy's. They were going to hire me at Roy's. They just didn't have any positions. So I got a job literally next door to Roy's Kahana at the Outback Steakhouse, and I just waited patiently until they finally hired me. And I was a bar back for Roy's Nicolina. And I worked there, it probably didn't last very long, a few months. And then I moved to the other side of the island, and I started cooking at a place called Kaikuono, which was right by Cam 1. It was below Kihei Prime Rib. And the head chef of that place started smoking crack, and just stopped showing up, which made, there was only 3 of us. There was the crackhead and me and 2 other guys, actually. So there's 4 of us. So the other guy who I worked with every day became the head chef, and I literally became the sous chef just out of the fact that there was nobody left there. And I think I was maybe 20 years old, 19 years old.
Gotta love that shifting hierarchy.
It was crazy though, because I worked like 18 hours. I worked pretty much like 70 hours a week, and I was like just a kid. I had no idea.
It seems like Hawaii would suit you. Good weather, probably surfing.
It was nice.
A lot of fun things to do in the evenings to keep you busy.
It was nice.
How long did you spend there, and then why move to New York? Why come all the way across the country and the globe?
So I was there for about a year. It was pretty fast. To be honest with you, Hawaii was great, but it's like, again, I just went from like one small town to another small town. It's like you're stuck on the rock. It gets small really quick. But I had these really good friends, Brian and Carl, and Brian lived in Kihei. He was one of my best friends in Hawaii, and he was from New York, and so he was moving back to New York, and he was like, "Oh, you should move to New York." So I came out and visited them, and it was curtains after that. I mean, once I saw this place, I was like, "This is it. This is where I was supposed to be here."
So you got here in 2000, and you started being involved in nightlife, bars, things of that nature. What were some of those first gigs, and like where have you worked around New York City? What kind of jobs have you had? I'm sure you've run into some really weird stuff in nightclubs in 2000.
Yeah, I put it in hard. Actually, when I first got here, I worked at the 60 Thompson Hotel, and I was a food runner. And then I was a back waiter. And then I was a line cook, and I kind of moved my way up the line, and I was still actually running food and I was on the line 4 days a week, and I ran food 2 days a week. and then I helped out in pastry. And at that point, they were just like, this dude will do whatever. And also he'll work as many hours as he like. I honestly, at this point, I had like 2 friends in New York. I didn't really care about, I was not social at all. I just literally worked. I was just like, I'm going to grind. And then bartender didn't show up one day. And they were like, just give it to the kid, man. He's never like, I had some bartending experience. I had bar backed in the past in Napa when I was young. I was a bar back for a club, and I bar backed at Roy's Nicolina. So I had some like experience in the bar. I wasn't just like going in cold. But and I remember the very first day, Jean-Marc, who is the owner of at the time it was called Tom. The restaurant was called Tom. It's where Kitty Chai is. Actually, that's gone now too, right? It's like some whole other restaurant in 60 Thompson. But I digress. So he's this French guy, and he's like, standing over me, and he's like, "Is this the drink? Are you sure this is the drink? Like everything I made, are you sure this is the drink? How it's made?" Like it was like he stood there the whole time, like pretty much dissecting every drink that I put out into the window. And it's like, man, you guys came into the kitchen, pulled me off the fucking line, and put me behind the bar. Like, what do you expect is going to happen? But I did. I made it. I worked in the downstairs bar. They moved me to the upstairs bar in the lobby, which is kind of where it's cranking. And I got a lot of crazy experience there. And at the time, my roommate was a bartender at Odessa on Avenue A, and a job. There was a few shifts available, and she got me the gig, and so I worked there. Early in like 2000, and I think I got that job in like early 2002. Eric Foss also worked there, the owner of Lit. This was pre-Lit, and that was Avenue A was like crazy back then. It was, that was kind of the heartbeat of the whole thing. I just remember even at Odessa, Odessa was like this like wildly underage, like it was known to be the place where like NIU kids with fake IDs would go hang out, but it was filled with, it was like everybody was there. It was like the Interpol and yeahs and the like the Comet Bus and all these people that were like, popular at the time were all hanging out at Odessa.
Were you doing any DJ work, music, anything in New York City at that time?
So that was the very big, that's where it started right there. So I worked 2 days a week. I quit the 60 Thompson, and I worked 2 days a week at Odessa, and just being who I was, that I couldn't not work. So I only had 2 days of work, even though I was probably making enough money in those 2 days. I still needed something to do. So I got another job, and I worked for Unimax, a tattoo supply company on Canal Street. I worked for Westwood, and I sold tattoo equipment in a basement, and which I made a lot of crazy friends like doing this job. But so I tuned like tattoo machines, and I sold needles, and I sold like ink pretty much to everybody in New York, because
Did you get
it was
a lot
like
of free weird tattoos that people
do.
wanted to try out on you?
I don't think I've ever paid for a tattoo, and I'm covered in horrible tattoos, like just some of the worst tattoos you've ever seen. I have a tattoo in a book called like 1,000 of the worst tattoos you've ever seen.
What is it of?
I have a dinosaur wearing a fanny pack.
Doesn't sound like it might be one of the 1,000 worst, but hey.
I mean, it's really bad. It looks like a child drew it. It's horrible.
And so you've got,
and that was where I started like, then that was where I started like being in a band, because I met all of these like kids that I worked with, and we formed a band. It was pretty much people from Unimax or the tattoo place above it called Sacred. So like I formed a band, Alabama Black Snake, and that was the origin of that, was through the tattoo, like through that whole movement.
Were you actually trying, was it serious? Were you kind of half joking when you formed the band? Were you like, we're going to get gigs and we're going to play? Or was it just a thing?
I was totally joking.
Okay.
It was like first the band was called the Hivcocks, which was probably like not the best name.
Not the most PC thing I've ever heard.
No.
Okay.
this was pre-PC. Like PC was still like a new. There was like nobody was indoctrinated yet to like political correctness.
Right.
But it was kind of a joke to begin with. But we became like, New York popular. It's like when you we played Bowery Ballroom and we played Mercury Lounge and Lit, and we played we did the venues. We did the like New York tour.
So you're bartending and you're in a rock band in New York City. There's something about having money and being in a rock band and knowing folks from the tattoo world and the bar world that probably makes your life at that point seem kind of glamorous. Like you've got it figured out a little bit.
It probably seemed glamorous from the outside. There was probably people who hung out with me that was like, damn, this dude's got it made. I never really saw it that way though.
Well,
it never really felt, it doesn't even like people today are like, oh, it's like, I don't feel any different.
So at that point you have some money. The band is working in a sort of real fashion where you're getting gigs and things like that. Are you squirreling away money and thinking to yourself like, I've got a plan back there?
Yes.
Do you have the plan back there at that point, or is it just like an empty box?
No,
okay,
I did.
So
I thought I was going to open a bar.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I was like in my head, I was squirreling because I was also DJing then at that point too. So I worked like 2 days at Odessa. I worked 4 days at Unimax. I worked. I DJ'd Friday night at Beauty Bar. I DJ'd Saturday night at the Rated X Panty Party, Opaline. And I DJ'd on Tuesday night I can't even remember the name of some bar on 6th Street between A and B. So I worked. I like worked all the time. And I just like squirreled away all my money. I just like saved and saved and saved.
And you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to do a Manhattan bar. That's the life that I'm kind of in right now. Were you living in Manhattan or Brooklyn?
I lived in Brooklyn. I've lived in Fort Greene since 2000. So I've always lived in Fort Greene. I never lived in Manhattan.
At that point, did you
did
you have a vision for that bar? Or
no, I just knew that I was going to get out. I knew that I was going to stop working for other people and I was going to work for myself. The first like fruition of like me becoming a business person and doing it myself was actually I looked in Bushwick. So I was looking actually in Bushwick, like area, East Williamsburg, like for a bar before this all happened. And then at this point I was working at Royal Oak and Sweet Ups, and I worked at Capone's, and I DJ'd at Supreme Trading. So like already like the Williamsburg thing was already starting to happen. My practice space was on North 7th, and Williamsburg was like this thing was already happening by that point, which was probably 2005 or ish. So
hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to start talking about how Roberta's The Idea came to be. Stick with us here on The Line on Heritage Radio.
This program is brought to you by Joule Sous Vide. My name is Katie Mosman-Wadler. I'm the Executive Director of HRN and a real-life Joule user. I use Joule to help me host the most delicious dinner parties. When you cook with Joule, there's zero guesswork. So steak, chicken, seafood, turkey, vegetables, and eggs all come out exactly the way you like them. The Paired app is super intuitive and has a great visual dentist guide. Joule is awesome for prepping many perfect portions, making it easy to cook for a crowd, and it's hands-free so you can focus on entertaining while Joule does the work. And pro tip, Joule is also great for travel. I throw mine in my suitcase if I'm headed to a rental house with any kind of uncertain kitchen. From perfect steak to juicy, tender Thanksgiving turkey, Joule makes the best food you've ever tasted. Just be sure to save some room for mini jars of pumpkin pie. Joule, perfect food every time. To get yours, visit chefsteps.com/Joule and use code HRN, as in Heritage Radio Network, to get $15 off for a limited time. That's chefsteps.com/JOULE, code HRN.
Welcome back to The Line. We started the first half of the show with Brandon Hoy. He's the one of the founders of Roberta's Pizza, and we're actually sitting in the studio in the backyard of Roberta's. Very cool to see what's happened here over the last 10 years. But before we get to the present, we have to find out how Roberta's as an idea came to be. So, Brandon, how did you meet the folks that started Roberta's? How did you all kind of come together and think this should be a thing we should do in a warehouse in Bushwick?
Right. So Chris and I, we we worked together at the Royal Oak. So we bartended, and at Sweet Ups we bartended together. And he was living over here on Ingraham, and he had a friend that lived in the building. This Italian guy, Mauro. And Mauro was a trip. I am an artist. He was a very weird dude. And so one day Chris is sitting at the bar and he's like, man, I have this friend Mauro. Like, I'm thinking we should, want to open this like pizza place, and I'm like, we're talking at the end of the bar, taking shots. And I'm like, I'm in. And he's kind of like, I didn't ask you. Like the look was like, I don't know. It's like I got money, I'm in. Let's do this. And then he was like, all right. I think in his mind it was like he hadn't even I don't know. Maybe he hadn't fully developed the thought that it was really a reality. But also he was a doer. Like the dude just it's like if something he just did shit. And I think we both had that mentality at the time, which was just we were surrounded by a lot of people who talked about doing shit all the time, and most of them never did it. And it happened really quick. We turned around. We found this space on 261 Moore Street, and it felt like at least it was probably months before we were after that meeting where we were in the space, starting to build it. Now, it took us forever to fucking build the place. We had no money. I mean, we obviously had money, but we didn't have
the right amount of
this is
money.
a full we did a full gut rent. I mean, there was nothing in this place. It looked like there was stalactites growing off the fucking roof. There was nothing in here.
Was it at some point an auto garage? Was it storage?
It was a nut and bolt factory.
Okay.
And the people who had it previous to us, it had been sitting abandoned for 2 years, and the guy that had it before us was just operating a construction company. It was just his construction company. It was an office, and they just there was a truck in here, and there was just crap. It had all their crap in it. It was a storage space.
So you say, all right, let's do pizza. Let's do it in Bushwick. Who knew about how to make pizza?
So none of us. And so Chris and I went to Mauro's hometown of Fasano in the north of Italy in Piedmonte. And we learned how to make pizza with some crazy dude who drove a dump truck. His real job was a dump truck guy. And he taught us how to make pizza in the equivalent of an Elks Lodge for a bunch of old people. So the first couple days we just made pizzas, and then the last day we actually made pizzas for the town of Fusano, which was literally not even the town of Fusano, the elderly folk of Fusano. So all these geriatrics wheeled in and after their bocce tournament. And we made a shitload of pizzas. I feel like we made 150 pizzas that day, and we cranked it out, and we made pizzas, and we bought the oven, the Pavazzi that's in Roberta's today. We bought that oven from Fusano, from that town, and we had it shipped over DHL. It actually got lost at sea for a few months. By lost at sea, they're just saying they're holding it until you pay them more money. It's just kind of how the Italians do shit. Lost at sea. But we came back with that recipe, and we fine tuned it. I don't think it was what we wanted it to be. It was still very Italian, very wet and fork and knife-ish. And I think we were looking for we were looking for something closer to something that represented what New York was as far as pizza. So we were looking for a middle ground between like the Neapolitan style and the New York style. So we were just trying to find somewhere in between that if you loved like, you know, the DeFaros and the like Arturos and the like those kind of like traditional New York places, that we would be somewhere in the middle of that.
How does Carlo become involved? Carlo is now really leads the kitchen at Blanca. I'm curious how you met him, and did his vision immediately match up with you guys, or was he always kind of on?
It didn't. Your brother was here. We were like, it was really funny. So Carlo was my friend. Carlo was like a dude that I hung out with. I met him when I worked at Odessa. You know, he was a friend of mine, and I think really how it happened was, I feel like we were in a cab with a mutual friend, Amanda Pista, and I was like, you know, I'm going to open this restaurant. You know, you want to get involved. At this point, I was like, we were completely out of money. We were like Chris and I were building we were like raiding dumpsters and like pulling bricks out. We were like, we couldn't even afford materials. We were like literally stealing them from other job sites and like bringing them back and like building shit at this point. So I think Carlo had some money at the time too. So I pulled Carlo in. We were probably about, I don't know, maybe halfway through the build. And we pulled Carlo in, and, you know, Carlo he was an aspiring chef at the time, kind of. He was working at Good World. He was talented. And also, you know, his family, his dad cooks. I mean, he comes from like food, like literally he was birthed out of food, I believe. So he had it in him. But in the early days, it was very weird, because it was like Chris and I did pizza and Carlo did everything else food related. So there was like this huge divide, right? There was like the back kitchen. It was always called the back kitchen and the pizza kitchen, and they were almost like two separate restaurants. Even like the timing on how it came out in the old days, it was just like two different places. You had like food and you had pizza, and they were like, you know, operated differently.
It was like that for years and years and years.
Yeah, it was.
And I wonder though, when you originally had, you know, discussions with Carlo, like, hey, come on board, do you think that he had ideas that this could evolve into a spot that houses a 2 Michelin star restaurant?
No.
It's just
no.
Does that
still
seem?
It seems crazy.
Okay.
We were all incredibly confident, though, that it was going to be successful.
Why? You're in the middle of nowhere. You're stealing bricks. You're making pizza. You literally learned how to make pizza 2 days ago.
Our personalities. Why? I just don't think failure was like. I don't think there was an exception for failure. Like, none of us would have accepted failure.
Do you think it would be possible for those that are listening that have never had the opportunity to be here? Can you take into words just the kind of vibe and aesthetic of Roberta's? Like, right. How do you articulate what happens here?
I always say, and this was there was some intentionalness to some of this craziness. I mean, maybe not as much of the like ad hoc, like patchwork kind of aesthetic that was due to the budget that we had to put the place together, but like the long tables and the benches and the like kind of tightness of everything was by design. We really, in the early days, we wanted to have a place where everyone was together, and pizza, in our mind, pizza was this thing where you had to reach to the middle and you had to share it. Like this wasn't a place where you ordered your dishes and they came and sat in front of you. Like, this was like you're eating like a family, like family style. And this was kind of there was other family style places out there, but it wasn't really like a widely popular way to dine at this time. So we were looking for a place that was just as much of a watering hole and a place of community and togetherness as it was like a restaurant that was about the quality of food. I think to be honest with you, we kind of stumbled upon how good the place was from a quality standpoint, and I think that came from Carlo's desire for the food to always be better, and us to understand the potential that we had in the early days. And I think we hired well early on, and we had lots of really talented people that came through here that helped us kind of in the infancy stages to kind of up the the quality, and it was like once we saw what the quality of food can be, that became the backbone of everything. We were just like, we're gonna ride the quality on this thing, and like the rest of it that was really important to us kind of took a back seat, but it's still what creates this room and what makes it so amazing, which is that it's so tight together and everybody's reaching into the center, and like, your phone doesn't work here. It's a dark hole for a phone service. So it's like, you don't see a lot of people like on their phones or taking pictures. It's a very unique place inside. Also, you could have somebody, a business person in a suit that's spending like $150 on himself and, per person, sitting next to somebody who's just having pizza and a beer who's spending like $20, and they could be right next to each other. And I think like it's a unique place.
Did you guys fall? So that's my next question. Did you fall backwards into the way that the vibe here is sort of for everyone, but also it has this weird, like, it's a motorcycle gang and like, fuck you, you're not welcome, but actually you are welcome. Just you have to wait an hour like everybody else. And
if you're willing to wait, once you get inside, everybody's equal here. That's how we feel. We really, there was a time where we had to like wash ourselves of this like shitty Brooklyn, early days of Brooklyn popularity, like waiting, like service style, which was like, we're better than you. And we, to be honest with you, all of us hated it and tried to like cure that constantly. But we always just felt like if you're willing to wait, if you're willing to come here and wait, once you get inside here, you're like, everyone's equal in here.
When you did actually get open, were you busy from the jump here, or was there a learning curve of waiting for people to figure out that it was here?
We were, let's put it this way, for the neighborhood, we were busy. For like what this place was, we were busy. We were busier than we should have been. There wasn't enough people in this neighborhood to be filled up, but we weren't busy like this,
So you have the food quality there. You guys are doing pizzas. Carlo is kind of setting a tone. I'm curious, from a business standpoint, had any of you ever owned a business prior? And did you feel a little bit like you were all kind of maybe angling to figure out who was running the show at that point?
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
It was wild. It was definitely wild.
But what does that mean? What does that wildness mean?
I don't know, but the wildness definitely translated to kind of like what the restaurant was. It was kind of the Wild West here, man. It was just like the whole mentality was the Wild West. It was nuts, man.
Did you dig that, or did you was someone pushing for structure and everyone was saying, we're busy, it's fine? Or
no, there was. I think in the early days, nobody was pushing for structure. I think we were just enjoying what it was at that time. I think when opportunities came to grow the business, that's when the pushing for structure kind of came in, and then that's where people started to disagree on how the business should be run. I think that was the wedge, was like, okay, now it's time to grow. What do we do here to grow this thing? And I think that's where like kind of the infighting and all that stuff came to be.
The hype was fast and furious. It exploded into a representation of what Brooklyn can be, and it got dubbed as, most important this, best that. In your personal opinion, is Roberta's, was it ever, and is it still one of the most important restaurants in the United States?
That's hard for me to say. I mean, I live so inside of it. It's hard for me to have any that kind of perspective on like what it is. What I will say about the place is that it's still really fun, and I think like as long as we're always focusing on like I said, the quality of the food is the backbone of everything, but it's everything else that we do around it that makes it interesting. And like the special dust, if you will, is fun. It's a fun place to go, and we try to keep that alive.
There has been a lot of controversy, and it's been publicly written about how
controversy.
How difficult was it for things to go down between the founding partners? And do you think that there's a way ever that you guys are going to be on good terms again, or is that ship sailed?
Never say never. I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't give it a lot of thought. If it happens, it happens. To be honest with you, there's no like animosity. I just want it to be done. I just wanted to have an open path to get the ship back, to get the sails up and get this thing back in the water. The problem was when we were fighting, we were just like wrapped up in litigation with each other. We couldn't do anything. So it just sucked for 3 years. We were just like tied up, just sitting here knowing that we were kind of in the prime of the ability to grow. It was like we were hot and it would have been the best time to strike. And we kind of got iced, so we had to sit back and just like kind of go through it. So that was really the only like craziness through the whole thing, was to just like not really have the ability to like grow the brand. But would I change any? I would never change the way any of this goes down. As crazy as it was on me and my family and probably everybody involved in it. It was a nightmare, but I wouldn't change it. It actually, it made us probably all stronger. It definitely made me a better business person. I'll tell you that. I'm definitely much more aware of the like ins and outs of how to operate this business. And probably, toughen me up a little bit to kind of the harsh realities of operating. So I really wouldn't change it. I just think like, I just keep looking forward, just keep planning for the next day, and just keep like looking for new opportunities to grow this brand.
I want to ask about some of that growth. So there's a Domino development that's opening in Williamsburg. There's the new Roberta's that's in Culver City, California, and it's in a up and coming. I mean, I lived in Culver City 10 years ago, but Culver City is definitely a gentrifying part of Los Angeles. It's very, very clean, with a lot of explosion going on in terms of...
See, that's where an explosion button on the sampler would come in really, really, really key.
Looks like our engineer is slacking there. But my question is that from where you started, you guys hauling bricks out of a dumpster, and now you're in like the two biggest bi-coastal fancy developments. There's part of me that has to say, does that feel un-Roberta's to you?
No, nothing feels un-Roberta's. See, that's the great thing about Roberta's, is there is nothing that's un-Roberta's. If you're listening to what I'm saying, it's like you just everything is and everything can be. So like to define ourselves as like some ramshackle, like put together by the ad hoc DIY thing as to like limit the reality of what we did. I mean, we built a 2 Michelin star restaurant right across from this crazy place. So we've always been trying to define ourselves by what we can do, not what we have done. So I think we're always looking for an opportunity to show new pieces of like what talent is embedded in this organization. So both of those things, yeah, they're shiny and they're different. They're also slightly different concepts than what we have here. We're like recreating what we did in Bushwick is probably never going to happen. I would find it hard to believe that we're going to try to do this again, because it is so unique, and the part of what makes it great is like its uniqueness and just the story that's told throughout its the 10 years that we've did it, the building of it. This is a place that you want to come see, and we're going to keep that the place of origin, right? These other places are just another opportunity for you to try the food. It was always our goal to feed people pizza, and we wanted to get pizza to as many people as we possibly could. We believe in the product. We believe that Roberta's pizza is delicious, and we're trying to get it to as many people as possible. Thus, frozen pizza. And why we even did frozen pizza to begin with, because it was another opportunity for us to show the world what we could do. And we thought at that point, frozen pizza, there was not a lot of good options, and we just thought we could do this better. And I believe we did.
You a little bit ago alluded to the fact that sort of a lot of the controversy and a lot of the hardship that you've gone on with fractured relationships has led you to become a better business person. You're the CEO of Roberta's. You've got frozen pizza, kiosks, bi-coastal, multiple locations. Do you lean on someone for advice and mentorship now that you lead such a sprawling operation? And are you still just basically learning on the job, or is there something that you do to make yourself a better leader of this organization?
Yeah. Well, one, I think the first thing is I'm completely honest with like what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, and I have a really good work ethic. So I'm also willing to learn. So I'm also like willing to try to fix the things that I'm not good at. I would probably say people, I don't have a ego. I'm not like, I mean, I'm sure I have some sort of ego. I wouldn't be in this business if I didn't have an ego at all, but I'm not, I definitely don't think that I'm the best at what I do all the time. I'm always looking to find people who specialize in things and understand. So I'm always listening. I do have a collection of confidants and people that I look to for support. I have a very good upper management staff, and like our CFO and like our controller, and like all of those things are people that are very, very knowledgeable. Not just in this realm, but just in the realm of business. And I think like also to not be short-sighted about like, this is how restaurants operate. I've like got past that. I'm like, how do businesses operate? What is a good business? And instead of looking at things like, well, this is a good restaurant, I look at them now as like, is this a good business? Is this a healthy, good business? So, and I think like a little bit of diversity too, like, trying to see angles in other businesses that aren't food related and see what they do. It's just always, it's constant work, man. I think if you're willing to do the constant work and willing to sometimes do the really hard things, then, you can grow things.
So building off that, it has so many heads to it. The frozen pizza, here you do dine in, takeout, delivery. Blanca's obviously right across the yard. You've got multiple locations in Manhattan that are like fancy food court kiosks. So I wonder what aspect of the business is the most exciting for you from a growth standpoint, and which one is the most lucrative from a growth standpoint? Maybe they're the same, maybe they're different.
They're definitely different. And I would say most of the time they're always different, because usually the things that are the most lucrative are not necessarily the most interesting. The most lucrative things are pizza. So the kiosks are probably the most lucrative things. And in a perfect world, the best things to kind of stretch the arms of what we do. And reach into markets that may be interested in the product that we sell. The most interesting things are the things that we haven't done yet. So it's like always just thinking about like, we're not a one-trick pony. We can definitely keep opening Roberta's, but like we have other concepts up our sleeve, and Carlo and I work on other concepts constantly. So the things that are interesting are introducing new concepts, and we haven't really done that yet. Besides Blanca, we haven't done a new concept, but we have some some tricks up our sleeve.
Anything you can possibly share?
Not yet.
Very vague tricks up
Not
your
yet.
sleeve. Well,
yeah, but let me just say this: we've worked on things that have like like fell through. That just didn't work out for us. So
And sometimes
so we worked
those actually help with the process. Yeah.
Totally. You build a deck, you build a concept, you conceptualize, you spend a lot of time understanding how the food and the aesthetic and how the flow of everything's going to work together. And then the business side of it doesn't work out. Either economically it doesn't work out, or for some reason the timing doesn't work out. But you go through the exercise and you have it. And it's like, we've done that so many times, and we have so many of these like concepts like prepared to 75% like completion, that are just sitting there waiting for the right opportunity to strike.
A lot of people, they have one restaurant, and then they dream one day that they can have two, and then the next logical spot from that is, maybe a really cool city in another country is some rich person that lives there is going to say, hey, you should open one in X. You're in the unique position that I assume you've been approached before to open up a Roberta's
everywhere.
Sydney, Roberta's X.
Everywhere.
Is there one city that is in the back of your mind that you think, I really wish we had a Roberta's there, and maybe it's on the top of the list or something like that?
Not anymore, because LA was like the one, just being a California kid, like going to California was like really the only thing that was like, besides New York, that I really...
Does that seem like a feather in the Roberta's cap? Like, wow, you made it bi-coastal? Or do you think that was a strong... Was that a strong business move because now you
both.
have
I think there's a
visibility?
changing tide of I think that LA has like a really, really... The start of a really good food culture. You see it happening. You're like watching it happen like in front of you, and to be fair, it doesn't have a long history of great food. I mean, it has some pretty key places that have been there for a long time, but it doesn't. It's just it just isn't there, and I think we're seeing there that it's like really coming to its own, and like Napa, it's like now it has its own identity. LA has its own identity, and it's great, and it's such a like unique place, and I think just getting to be involved in that is special for us.
What does Roberta's LA contribute to the food scene there?
Oh man, you're gonna have to ask the food scene. I mean, again, I think we contribute, like I said, with a state, like we're giving them a product that we believe in. Also, just by design, like we designed this place in a totally different way. It gave us an opportunity to like show the full breadth of like what we do, like as restaurant designers and restaurateurs. Is a very different look than here.
You teamed up with some guys to do a pizza-inspired design, a lot of shapes and a huge amount of colors, and you had more of a budget to play with. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you contributed to that part of it?
It was nice. Yeah, we did. I worked with the architect Jesse Voigt, and we worked with a lot of materials that I was like, well, let's just start here. I was obsessed with breeze blocks. And I had this like crazy obsession with breeze blocks. I was literally like trying to make everything out of breeze blocks at like here, everywhere.
What is that, glass or?
Breeze blocks are like formed concrete blocks that are like open.
Okay.
So it's pretty much like a concrete block that has like a pattern in it that's open. So the pattern on the inside is triangles, like, the slice of pizza. We used a lot of triangles in everything. So we just like by design we'd use triangles in a lot of things. But the breeze block like back wall was just something that I had been just obsessed with, and I really wanted to express this thing, and from the help of a lot of like great people, we actually got to make our vision a reality. It was great.
Roberta's is at 10 years. 2018. It's been 10 years.
This year was 10. This is 11.
This is 11.
In January, it'll be 11.
So the party's still going. There's still Tiki Disco, right? The clientele still kind of mirrors some of the beginning, but now you've got a lot of people. They bring their parents here. You got people coming for business meetings in suits here. Some of the founders are a little bit older than they were at the beginning, right?
Me?
10 years from now, let's fast forward. Yeah. Roberta's is open for 20 years. Do you think, if you're still here, hopefully you're still here, are you trying to keep Roberta's as this party atmosphere, or do you think that there is a danger in it becoming like a kitschy version of its older self, or do you do you want it to grow up with you?
I want it to be who it wants to be. And my job is to constantly be looking at that and making sure. And as you raise a kid, it's like you can't force it to be what it doesn't want to be. So my job is to constantly like be there, guiding it and loving it and paying attention to it so that it can be its best self. That's all I can do. To answer your question, if it grows up to be something more sophisticated, it grows up to be something more sophisticated. I'm not going to be mad. But if it stays this forever, I'm totally all right with that, as long as it stays as the truth to itself. So if that's what it just needs to be, if that's what the neighborhood wants it to be, if that's what the clientele wants it to be, that's what it'll be.
As the guy who has to basically be you make most or a lot of the decisions on the day-to-day, what is the hardest or most challenging part of your normal day-to-day? And what does that actually consist of? Like, is it phone calls? Is it meetings? I'm curious about people listening that want to transition into the ownership position or that want to open up their own place. Like, what are the parts of your days that are very difficult for you?
That's a good question, actually, but it can be a number of things. I think one, most of your time as a restaurant owner is just problem solving. So there's an array of problems that could pop up, and the more difficult ones could happen anywhere. You know, it could be an HR issue, it could be a labor issue, it could just be maybe something more technical, a construction issue. Any one of those things could be the craziest thing you had to do. But most of my days are, I would say probably about 20% of my days are focused on growth, business development, how to grow the business. The rest of it is focusing here on what we can fix here in preparation for growth. So strengthening the labor force, strengthening the training, just really trying to produce really high quality employees. I think that's really the most important thing, because as you grow, this is the pot. Roberta's is the pot for us. Everything comes through here in some way. Our back office is here. All of the really important infrastructure stuff is here. So this is the heart of like what all of our growth is. So I would say really the most important thing is labor and like focusing on like training, management and like moving people up and getting people prepared to either take on their own. Like our head pizzola, Chris Ancona here is now running the LA shop, and that was a good move for him. He worked his way up from just a line pizza cook. He's been with us for a really long time, and now he's running. Now he's the man out there running it. So, and a lot of people are like that. Lee and Brittany, who were line cooks here, are also sous out there with Chris Ancona, and it's the important thing here is like training people and growing them and kind of getting them prepared for our growth.
There's too many locations to list them all, but Roberta's can be found all around the United States now. But why don't you just shout out the HQ original address and then tell everybody where they can find you in LA? Yep.
So here at 261 Moore Street, between Bogart and White and Bushwick, right off the Morgan L train. In LA, we are located at 8810 Washington Boulevard in Culver City, at Platform, and you can find us somewhere in the middle of that development. You're looking for the bustle. We're also at 230 Park, across from Grand Central, and 570 Lexington at 51st and Lexington. And, soon to come, a few more locations, Domino, Sugar Factory in Williamsburg. And yeah.
And one more that you're about to slip in there.
Maybe.
Cool.
Maybe.
Brandon, thanks for coming on the show and talking a little bit about the wild, crazy 10-year history.
We didn't even talk about your brother.
I know. There's no time for him.
Oh, man. We loved him.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for being here. I bet we could have had another hour to really dig in deeper. And thanks for letting Heritage park in your backyard.
Hey, man, thank you.
For just as long as basically you've been around as well.
For reals. These assholes. I've been trying to get rid of them for like 9 years.
Well, unfortunately, I'll be here next week with another show. You can listen to episodes of The Line every Tuesday at 11 a.m. here on Heritage Radio.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.
Hey listeners, we're nearing the end of our 15th anniversary fundraising campaign, and we need your help to meet our goal. This campaign offers you a chance to win a unique food and music experience in one of the most exciting cities in America. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and you'll be entered to win dinner for two and 2 tickets to a concert in one of 8 amazing cities: New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Ardmore, Pennsylvania, and Asheville. All donations support our work educating food system storytellers. And when you donate, you can choose one of those cities and you'll be entered to win dinner and 2 tickets to a show. So help us reach our goal and enter to win dinner and a show in the city of your choice. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.